Hi students, in this video we are going to see about the age of Mahajanapadas and Iranian and Greek invasions. We are continuing from the previous class. In previous class we have seen Stone Age, then in sequence we have seen Indus Valley Civilization, then Vedic period. Vedic period once again divided into two parts, early Vedic period and later Vedic period. Now what is the time period of Vedic age? From 1500 BC to 500 BC is considered as part of Vedic age. Once again, if we divide, up to 1000 BC is early Vedic period, after 1000 BC is the later Vedic period. Now, we are entering into the next phase of our human history in the chronological order. Now, we are starting with the timeline around 600 BC. Around 600 BC, a different political systems emerged in the Indian subcontinent. They are called Mahajanapadas. Around 5th century BC, Mahajanapadas emerged. Totally, there were 16 great Mahajanapadas or 16 large kingdoms. In previous class, we have seen that Vedic people, they entered the Indian subcontinent around 1500 BC. Initially, they settled in this area. Then, they moved gradually to the Gangetic plain. In this later Vedic period, the political system evolved when it compared with the early Vedic period. Politically means now king, bureaucracy, then taxation system. Most importantly, they started giving importance to the territory. This is the major change from early Vedic period. In early Vedic period, Jana was the most important political unit. That means people used to move from one place to the another place. The lifestyle or subsistence pattern of early Vedic period was domestication of animals, rearing cattle. In the search of food for animals, they used to move from one place to the other place. During that time, Jana was the most important political unit. When it comes to the later Vedic period, now they got a lot of resources. Lot of resources means now it is a forest area. They cleared the forest. It is alluvial soil, fertile alluvial soil. Alluvial soil, lot of water resources is available. All these factors led to the practice of agriculture on a large scale. We are talking about Mahajanapadas. Mahajanapadas around 600 BC, Mahajanapadas emerged. Large territorial kingdoms. As we have seen in the previous class also, no age will stop at one point suddenly and will not start new age all of a sudden. Always transition period is there. Before 600 BC, this kind of developments were going on. Agriculture became main practice. Now they started producing rice, wheat, barley and other crops also. 2 times a year crops were produced. All these led to increase in the productivity of agriculture. As the resources increased, now trade also increased. As the agriculture productivity increased, surplus economy came. Surplus economy. This surplus was used for trading purpose. Now traders, the concept of trading, previously also trading was there. If you see Indus Valley Civilization, trade was one of the major subsistence pattern of Indus Valley Civilization. When it comes to Vedic age, in early Vedic period, trade very limited. Now trade became very active subsistence pattern. All these led to the creation of surplus and resources. Now all these resources led to the creation of a kingdom. Proper taxation system emerged. Now with this taxation system, kings, they tried to control the territory. Whenever they got the opportunities, they used to expand their territory into neighboring territories. So this was the continuous process from 1000 BC onwards. Gradual evolution was taking place. Once one side migration was taking place, and they were clearing the forest, producing economy, agriculture, trading activities. Because of these social systems only, in later Vedic period, entire society was divided into four segments. By this time period, different sections of society are involved in different professions. Some Brahmins, they are mainly, the main profession of Brahmins is to use the knowledge for sacrifices and rituals. Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, then Vaishyas who are traders, then Shudras. Shudras, the concept Shudras were used to support the upper three Varnas. So fourfold Varna system also emerged because of the changing economic system. This was the development in later Vedic period. By 600 BC, these philosophical ideas, this economic system, this political system consolidated. Now they have reached to the next level. This is the age of Mahajanapada. Now I am erasing this. Because of the change in economic pattern, political system also developed. Politically, in different parts of the country, different kingdoms emerged over a period of time. Likewise, totally 16 great kingdoms emerged. The reason? Just we have seen it. Gradual evolution in the human settlement and subsistence pattern. Now some kingdoms were having more resources. Some have less resources based on their geography. Based on the geography, some were enjoying more resources, some were enjoying less resources. One of the examples where more resources are available is Magadha region. One of the 16 Mahajanapadas called Magadha. This Magadha Janapada commanded more resources comparing with other kingdoms. It became more powerful. Of all these 16 kingdoms, Magadha became more powerful and they started expanding into other areas as well. Gradually, it enlarged into different parts of the country. Now, by the time period of Mauryas, Magadha, so many dynasties ruled one after the other, like Haryanka dynasty, Shishunaka dynasty, Nanda dynasty, and after Nandas, Mauryas emerged. When the time of Mauryas came, already Magadha was a very powerful one and it reached the subcontinental portions. This shows how Magadha enjoyed the initial boost Magadha got is from geographical resources and its geographical position. Along with natural resources, they got a strong leadership as well. So along with resources and strong leadership made Magadha very powerful and it became the first empire. We are seeing for the first time kingdoms in Mahajanapada period, first kingdom. During this time period, in later Vedic time period itself, kingdoms emerged. By 600 BC, 16 kingdoms, that means Indian subcontinent is seeing proper political system by 6th century BC. Gradually, it led to the creation of first empire, that is Magadhan Empire. Haryanka dynasty and Nanda, Shishunaga and Mauryas, they enlarged the territories of Magadha and made it as the first empire in the Indian subcontinent in our history. That is how 16 kingdoms initially were there. Gradually, these 16 kingdoms gave way to the first empire. Let us see what are these 16 kingdoms. We will take one by one. 16 kingdoms. Let us see first. In geography wise, we will try to understand what are the different type of kingdoms. This is important. In 1 year, UPSC has asked a question: in which of the following areas Buddha lived, or Buddha traveled to which of the following areas? That was one time prelims question, and the same question is repeated next year also. This is very important area and it will be asked in examination as well. Let us see how to remember these, because there are 16 kingdoms. Some important kingdoms we will try to remember, even though we are not able to remember all the 16. Let us try to remember at least a few kingdoms, and through a story format we will try to understand it. First one, we know we have epics like Mahabharata and Ramayana. Mahabharata, Ramayana are two epics of later Vedic period. In later Vedic period, these epics developed. In early Vedic period, Rig Veda. In later Vedic period, Samaveda, Yajurveda, Atharvana Veda, and epics like Mahabharata, Ramayana, these are composed during later Vedic period. Through these literatures, we can understand some of the kingdoms, some of the Mahajanapadas. For example, in Mahabharata, main characters of Mahabharata are Pandavas and Kauravas. They belong to a kingdom called Kuru. That is located near present day Delhi. You can say this area, and this is one of the Mahajanapadas. This is one of the Mahajanapadas of 16. Kuru was the kingdom. Now, Pandavas, 5 brothers of Pandavas, they married a woman called Draupadi. She came from Panchala. Panchala is located nearby area. This is Panchala. This is another one of the 16 Mahajanapadas. Now you see, Mahabharata and Ramayana stories were composed during later Vedic period. However, in 600 BC, by the time 600 BC came, these kingdoms emerged as one of the powerful kingdoms. One more character in Mahabharata is Lord Shri Krishna. He belongs to Madura region. Madura region belonged to a kingdom called Saurashena. Saurashena near Madura region. Now we got 3 important. Saurashena, 3 Mahajanapadas we are able to remember. Now, Pandavas, after being defeated in the dice game, they were supposed to go to forest, and for 1 year they were supposed to go incognito. Incognito means they should not reveal their identity to anyone. During that time period, they mainly They went to a kingdom called Matsya. This is another one of the Mahajanapadas. Just from Mahabharata itself, we are trying to see how many Mahajanapadas we are able to get it. Now Krishna, Pandavas. Now when it comes to Ramayana, the hero of Ramayana, Rama, he belonged to a kingdom called Kosala. Kosala is located here. This is another Mahajanapada. How many Mahajanapadas we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Mahajanapadas. The mother of Kauravas, Pandavas and Kauravas, two important characters. Kauravas' mother Gandhari. She came from Gandhara Mahajanapada. And there is one more Mahajanapada nearby, that is Kamboja. Kamboja, Gandhara, two Mahajanapadas in the northwestern part of India. When it comes to this location, Kuru, Panchala, Saurashena, Matsya, Kosala. These are other important Mahajanapadas. Now there is, near Kosala, there is one more kingdom, that is Kashi. Kashi is very famous in literature, in Mahabharata, Ramayana. So many times Kashi is there with respect to the stories. Kashi is another Mahajanapada. When it comes to the Bihar and West Bengal region, two important Mahajanapadas emerged. Here, when Kauravas, when for the first time Duryodhan met Karna in Mahabharata story, Karna, initially he was not a king. Later, Duryodhan has allocated a particular kingdom to Karna, that is Anga. Duryodhan has given a kingdom called Anga to Karna. With this, he became a king. This is Anga, present day Bengal region. In between Kosala and Anga, there is one powerful kingdom, that is Magadha. Magadha. In Mahabharata itself, Magadha is also mentioned. In Mahajanapada, when Yudhishthira, Dharmaraja, he became the king, he performed a Rajasuya Yaga. And as part of this Yaga, he had to defeat some of the kings. There was a king called Jarasandha. He was very powerful. In order to defeat him, Bhima and Krishna, Arjuna went and they fought and they killed Jarasandha. Jarasandha belonged to Magadha region. Jarasandha belonged to Mahajanapada of Magadha region. Now with Mahabharata story itself, we are able to understand how many Mahajanapadas are coming. One more important Mahajanapada here in the central part is Avanti. One more Mahajanapada. In Deccan, there is one Mahajanapada, that is Ashmaka. Now you see, by 600 BC itself, different parts of the country are parceled into different kingdoms. These are total 16 Mahajanapadas. Along with Brahmanical texts, we are seeing them through Brahmanical texts so far. These Mahajanapadas are mentioned in Buddhist texts as well. Because the person who propagated Buddhism is Gautama Buddha, Siddhartha Gautam. He also belonged to one of the republics that was actually part of Kosala. As part of Kosala, there is a small area called Sakya Republic. Sakya Republic is the place where Gautama Buddha was born. Now, Buddhist literature tried to see the birthplace and how Gautam Buddha raised and how he became enlightened person. While composing these literature, Buddhist text also mentioned about the existing kingdoms. From 600 BC onwards, we have Brahmanical texts also for our history and also Buddhist texts for analyzing and understanding our Indian history. Now these are various Mahajanapadas, some of the important Mahajanapadas. Even though you don't remember all 16, at least through a story you will be able to understand many Mahajanapadas. Kamboja, Gandhara, Kuru, Panchala, Saurashena, Matsya, Avanti, Kosala, and there is one more Mahajanapada you may be able to remember. Krishna, he belonged to Saurashena. One of the enemies of Krishna, he was Shishupal. Shishupala, one of the enemies of Krishna. Shishupala belonged to a Chedi, belonged to a Mahajanapada called Chedi. So you will get one more Mahajanapada just by remembering Mahabharata and Ramayana story. This is how you have to remember 16 Mahajanapadas. At least a few important Mahajanapadas you have to identify. And there is one more Mahajanapada, that is Vatsa, located near Kashi. Kaushambi was the capital of this region. Vatsa Mahajanapada, this is Kaushambi was the capital of Vatsa kingdom. All these kingdoms were having their respective capitals also. For example, Avanti is having capital like Ujjain. They were having in fact two capitals. Northern part is having Ujjain, southern part is having Mahishmati, Ashmaka, Bodhan, Magadha, Rajgir. Likewise, you will have capitals for each and every Mahajanapada. So we are dealing with the age of Mahajanapadas. Age of Mahajanapadas. Mahajanapadas emerged after later Vedic period. Gradually, later Vedic political system emerged into 16 great kingdoms. These 16 great kingdoms, we are calling them as Mahajanapadas. This is about Mahajanapada, and one of the Mahajanapadas, that is Magadha. This emerged as one of the powerful empire. Now we are dealing with specifically about Magadha Mahajanapada. We have seen 16 Mahajanapadas. One of the Mahajanapada is Magadha. Now we are specifically focusing on how Magadha became more powerful and how it emerged as the first empire in our Indian history. This is Magadha. Later we will see about Mauryas. One of the dynasties of Magadhan empire is Mauryas. They themselves we deal separately about Mauryas, because the contribution of Mauryas was so much that we have to dedicate one particular class about Mauryas. Now we are moving to the Magadha empire. This is Magadha, where Magadha is located, present day Bihar, Bengal regions. Now we will see how it became the empire. Initially, Magadha was one of the 16 Mahajanapadas. One of the 16 Mahajanapadas. Now we will try to understand how it enlarged itself into here. Initially it is located here. This is Magadha. Capital of Magadha was Rajgir. Rajgir was the capital. Now you see, one of the advantages of Magadha, like every other Mahajanapadas, geography. with this geography means one is alluvial soil, abundant water resources. Along with this, forests. Most importantly, they got the access to iron ores. It is located near Chota Nagpur Plateau. Chota Nagpur Plateau is famous for iron ore. They got the access to iron metal. In later Vedic period itself, Iron Age started. Around 1000 BC. Around 1000 BC, for the first time in the Indian subcontinent, iron came from Dharwar region. Dharwar region gave the first evidence of iron around 1000 BC itself. Later, it moved to different parts of the country. By the time later Vedic period emerged here, some of the kingdoms already using iron metal. When it comes to 600 BC, the usage of iron metal reached to the higher levels. Now they got the iron ore at their disposal. With this, on one hand, with iron metal, they can increase the agriculture productivity. They created agricultural tools. With this, they enhanced the agriculture productivity. And transportation material was developed. Most importantly, military equipment. Military equipment was manufactured through this iron ore. They became very strong. Now through agriculture, transportation, productivity, surplus, trade flourished. Transportation, along with iron ore, they got water resources as well, river channels. The rivers, so many rivers were flowing. Ganga and its tributaries are flowing through this geography. And so many resources. These river channels provided transportation facility also. Trade flourished. Now more taxation. With this taxation, they invested in the military. They created one of the strong military power. Geographically, the resources which are available at their disposal were used by the Magadhan. They created one of the strongest military power force in the Indian subcontinent. What is the time period? This is, we are talking around 600, 500 BC and so on. Mauryan Empire come around 320s. Chandragupta Maurya established kingdom or established Mauryan dynasty around 320 BC. Now we are talking from 600 BC till 300 BC. That means around 300 years. During these 300 years, they were using the natural advantages which are provided by the geography. They are strengthening their political system. One, these people are monarchs. And another significant reason for the Magadhan power is leadership. Some of the great leaders emerged from Magadhan region, starting with first Bimbisara. Now we will see one by one. Bimbisara was the first known powerful ruler of Magadha. Bimbisara, he was a contemporary to Gautama Buddha. When Gautam Buddha was born and when he was wandering from one place to the other place, Bimbisara was the king of Magadha. He belonged to Sakya. He belonged to Sakya kingdom or Sakya republic. Two types of kingdoms emerged during this time period. One is monarchy. Single king ruled the entire territory. Another one, republic or Ganarajas, where different multiple kings come together and they combinedly rule the territory. Gautam Buddha belonged to one of the republics or one of the Ganarajas called Shakya. And he was also contemporary. Now, Gautam Buddha, Bimbisara, there was another physician called Jivaka. Contemporary to Jivaka, Jivaka was a physician. He was a doctor. He treated both Gautam Buddha and Bimbisara. He treated one more king of Avanti. Avanti king also was treated by Jivaka. He was living in the Rajgir. He was living in Magadha kingdom. This is very important with respect to prelims. Jivaka, he belonged to Bimbisara, Gautam Buddha, Avanti king called Pradyota. Gautam Buddha, also important, Gautam Buddha, the places, the geography associated with Gautam Buddha is one of the important previous questions in UPSC. If we see now I am erasing this. Gautam Buddha belonged to this particular location. Bimbisara is ruling in this location. If you see the life of Buddha, we will take separate class about Jainism and Buddhism. Buddha, he was born here. Later, he traveled in different parts and he came to Rajgir. Rajgir is the capital. Rajgir was the capital of Magadha. Then he went to Bodh Gaya. Bodh Gaya, it was also in Magadha. Then he came to Kashi, near Kashi or Varanasi, that is Saranath, where he gave the first sermon. Then he went to Shravasti. Shravasti is the capital of Kosala. Then he went to Kushinagara. Kushinagara is another place. Kushinagara is another place in Malla kingdom. Kushinagara was the place where he died. Here it is Lumbini, where he was born. All these developments are taking place when Magadhan Empire, Magadhan kingdom is enlarging its power. This is the reason why I explained comparing with Gautam Buddha's life and the rise of Magadha. So far okay? Bimbisara, the first leadership provided for Magadha was Bimbisara. Now we will take this. I am erasing this. Bimbisara, when Bimbisara came here Kosala, here Avanti, here there is a kingdom that is Kashi, here Anga. During the time of Bimbisara, he annexed Anga. He annexed and he enlarged his territory. Now I will combine this. Now enlarged territory. Magadha enlarged. For Anga province, Ajatashatru, his son Ajatashatru was appointed as the viceroy. Ajatashatru, he is also another important leader who expanded Magadhan Empire. This is the reason why we are specifically talking about Ajatashatru. Bimbisara, he expanded his territory, and one of the territories, Anga, his son Ajatashatru was appointed as viceroy. Through expansionism or through military force, he expanded. And another, with marriage alliance also, he expanded his territory. How? He married Koshala princess. He married Lichavi princess also. When he married Koshala princess, he got Kashi kingdom as dowry. And now his influence reached this part. Enhanced initially small kingdom Magadha with the leadership of Bimbisara through military tactic and through marriage alliances, he expanded his territory. Bimbisara is contemporary to Gautam Buddha. When this kind of expansionism was going on, Gautam Buddha was roaming these kingdoms only. He was roaming in Magadha kingdom, he was roaming in Koshala kingdom. So this is the location geography of Gautam Buddha. This is very important for prelims point of view. Avanti was another more powerful kingdom. Like Magadha got iron resources, Avanti kingdom is also having iron ores near its region. With this iron technology, they also became very powerful and continuously there were battles with Magadha. After Bimbisara, Ajatashatru came. Now Ajatashatru, here, now we are moving to the Ajatashatru. Even though he expanded, due to the haughty nature of Ajatashatru, Kosala, Kashi and Lichavi. Lichavi is a republic. The capital was Vaishali. This is the place related to Mahavira. Vardhamana Mahavira, one of the Tirthankaras of Jainism. It was a republic. It was very powerful one. Now when Rajgir was the capital of Magadha. When Ajatashatru became the king, according to the tradition, he killed his own father. Ajatashatru killed his father Bimbisara. He became the king. One of the princes of Koshala. Now Koshala prince also died along with Bimbisara. Koshala kingdom gave Kashi as a dowry to Bimbisara. Now it has taken it back. Because of this, there were wars between Koshala and Ajatashatru. Now Lichavi also, another republic, they were not completely coming under control of Magadha. For 16 years, they fought wars. Finally, Ajatashatru expanded his territories completely into Kashi region, Lichavi region, Anga region, and Koshala also came under his influence. This is how Bimbisara and Ajatashatru, two important leaders from this particular region, became very powerful. These two belong to a dynasty called Haryanka dynasty. Haryanka dynasty. Haryanka dynasty. Later, Udayan came. After Bimbisara, Ajatashatru. After Ajatashatru, Udayan. He shifted capital from Rajgir to Pataliputra. That is how Pataliputra since then became the capital of Magadha kingdom. After this, when it became Magadhan Empire also, Pataliputra was the capital. And when Mauryans also came, Pataliputra was the capital. He was the person, Udayan. He shifted capital from Rajgir to Pataliputra. One of the reasons for shifting the capital was there were continuous wars with Avanti region, and Avanti used to attack Magadha in order to protect its capital Rajgir. They wanted more strategic and secure place. They shifted to Pataliputra. For some time, it was shifted to Vaishali as well. Vaishali, after some time, in Shishunaga dynasty, Vaishali acted as capital for some time. Pataliputra, Vaishali, Rajgir are three important places in case of Buddhism. The reason for taking this much details are they are related to Buddhism. Here, first Buddhist council was held in Rajgir. Vaishali, second Buddhist council was held. Pataliputra, third Buddhist council was held. This is the reason why I am explaining you very in details. Rajgir was the first capital, later Pataliputra. For particular time period, Vaishali was the capital of Magadha. However, later it again shifted back to the Pataliputra. All these capitals of Magadha provided the place of Buddhist councils. First Buddhist council Rajgir, second Vaishali, third one is the Pataliputra. Fourth one is Kashmir or Kundalwan was the place during Kanishka time period. fourth Buddhist council was held. On one side, how Magadha became very powerful. While knowing this particular development, we are trying to connect with the life of Buddha also and important places related to Buddhism as well. Because UPSC asks more questions from this particular region. Buddha, Buddhist geography related to Buddha and important Buddhist councils. Within all these three belong to Haryanka dynasty. After Haryanka dynasty, Shishunaga dynasty, later Nanda dynasty, later Mauryan dynasty. One after the other. Why we need to remember this? This is the first powerful dynasty which made Magadha powerful. Later, the territory of Magadha enhanced during Shishunaga dynasty, and it was further expanded to different areas during Nanda dynasty. During the Nanda dynasty only, Alexander the Great invaded northwestern part of India. Around 326 BC, when 326 BC Alexander invaded northwestern part of India, Nanda dynasty was ruling in Magadhan region. This is why each and every individual dynasty was important one. And Mauryan separate chapter and separate video we have to take it. Nanda dynasty. Now this is how leadership. First one, geography played very significant role in making Magadhan Mahajanpada as Magadhan Empire. Later leadership like Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, Udayan and other dynasties like Shishunaga dynasty, Nanda dynasty and Mauryan dynasty. All these people enhanced the prestige and power of Magadhan Empire. One more reason for third reason is unorthodox characteristic. Unorthodox religious philosophy. Here you see why I am saying unorthodox. I am erasing this. In the later Vedic period, this area came under the influence of Vedic practices. This we are calling today as orthodox. Already predefined set of ideas, people were following the principles according to the Vedic literature and Vedic ideas. They are called orthodox philosophies. Some people in this region started questioning in opposition to the orthodox philosophy. There are some evils in this philosophy. They created social inequalities. By birth, some sections of people were given privileges, some sections were given less privileges, and all these evils created disturbances in the society. Some people started questioning the orthodox philosophy. It led to the creation of new ideas. These were called unorthodox. They were not involved in the dogmatic practices. Now, according to the changing situation, according to the changing times, these philosophies emerged. One of the unorthodox philosophies is Buddhism, another Jainism, Ajivaka, Charvaka. Such kind of philosophies also emerged. The geographic location where all these emerged means in this location, in the eastern part of Gangetic plain. One of the reasons is the later Vedic age. Here around 1500 BC, around 1000 BC, they started moving towards Gangetic plain, and gradually they were expanding till this part. Mainly by 600 BC, the main power of Vedic religion was felt till this eastern Uttar Pradesh, Bihar region and Bengal region. Still they were relatively out of this Vedic ideology. This has given a place for new ideas. Just the ideas, the Vedic ideas entered into this region. Immediately there was an opposition to these new ideas, and it led to the creation of unorthodox philosophies. These are some of the religious philosophies. Now you see, this is the reason they are liberal, egalitarian. People also supported their kings because of these ideas. The unorthodox philosophies, it led to the expansion of kingdoms. All sections of people can be utilized as warriors or soldiers. Now they gradually expanded into different areas. This is one of the other major important aspect about what the reason behind the emergence of Magadhan Mahajanpada as Magadhan Empire. So these are three important aspects why Magadha Janapada became powerful. You have to remember, now you connect with the early Vedic period, then later Vedic period, then Mahajanapada period. Here if you see Magadha, while discussing about Mahabharata and trying to connect with Mahajanapada, there was a ruler called Jarasandha. In order to identify, this Vedic literature also used to degrade the Eastern people. Another reason is because these people do not follow the Vedic sacrifices. Vedic religion means, according to Brahmanical text and Brahmanical religious ideas, people should follow their lifestyle. Whereas in the eastern part, they did not follow the rituals. One example to show this is Jarasan. He was from Magadha, from Mahabharata story itself, Magadha, and he used to attack, he used to attack Madura. According to the legend, according to the story, so many times he invaded Madura. Madura is Sri Krishna, the hero of Mahabharata story. He used to attack so many times. Finally, he had to move. The family of Sri Krishna had to move to Dwaraka in order to safeguard from Jarasan. This area is Vedic area. Orthodox philosophy. This is naturally unorthodox. Mahabharata, Ramayana, whether we believe it or not, whether they are true stories or not, doesn't matter for history. History is to interpret such a text and also with other texts like Jaina texts, Buddhist texts, along with Brahmanical texts. Believing the Brahmanical texts is one aspect of a human life. That is perfectly legitimate idea, that is religion wise. Religiously people can believe and they can practice their religious practices. Whereas for history, what really happened is the matter for history subject. Brahmanical text along with Jaina, Buddhist and more importantly archaeological evidences are important in order to reconstruct what really happened. Based on these texts, we can infer these kind of information with respect to our history. So Vedic religion and unorthodox philosophies, orthodox on one side, unorthodox on other side, this area is relatively unorthodox. It led to the rise of liberal ideas. And gradually they expanded into different parts. By the time Ashoka came, almost entire Indian subcontinent came under Magadhan influence. This is about how Magadha emerged as the most powerful empire. The second chapter we are moving now. With this knowledge, Iranian and Greek invasions. We have seen the age of Mahajanapada, 16 Mahajanapadas. We tried to remember some of the important Mahajanapadas through Mahabharata, Ramayana story connected way. Now we have seen Magadha also, how one of the Mahajanapadas, Magadha, became very powerful, strong and first empire. Now we see Iranian and Greek invasions. While Magadha is expanding its territories in different parts of the country, in the eastern side of the continent, subcontinent, on the western side, on the northwestern part of India, invasions from Iran and Greek came. We see this now. Let us take world map. This is India, this is world map. We need world map to understand how the Iranian and Greek invasions took place. Iranian and Greek. This chapter is very important because it make major foundation for the future chapters. The developments that are taking place in this period going to affect the future time period and future political developments as well. This is why we are taking in very detailed manner. This is Magadha. Magadha is expanding into different areas. It was reaching when it was in the initial stages. Let us say in the initial stages around 500 BC. In 500s, if we see the lifetime of Gautam Buddha, this is 583 BC, 563 BC to 483 BC. It is, according to one tradition, 63 years plus 17 years, total 80 years. Gautam Buddha lived for 80 years. This is the lifetime of Buddha. Around 544 BC, Bimbisara came. In 492 BC, Ajatashatru came. He was there till 460. Around this same period, around 500s, let us go to old map. This is the location. Now here Bimbisara, Ajatashatru, Gautama Buddha were there in the eastern part of India. Around the same time period, a kingdom, an empire emerged in Iran part. This is called Achaemenid Empire. This is called Achaemenid. Achaemenid or Achaemenid Empire. This Iran empire is called like Magadha Empire. It is called Achaemenid. Like so many Mahajanapadas, how Magadha is expanding into different kingdoms, Achaemenid Empire also started from small region and expanded into different areas. They also unified different kingdoms and emerged as one of the powerful empires in the history itself. They gradually expanded into northwestern part of India as well. So they created very large empire. Now you see this side. When this side they were expanding, now they came into contact with Europe as well. Europe, here Greeks were there. Greeks, like so many Janapadas, like many kingdoms here. Here also many kingdoms, small kingdoms were there. Here also many kingdoms were there. Here Magadha took the lead and they expanded into empire, Magadhan Empire. Here Achaemenid Empire. Here still small kingdoms were there. They are very powerful in nature. They are warriors. They used to fight amongst themselves. Around the same time period, Achaemenid Empire is expanding into western part as well. This led to the conflict between Greeks and Iranians. Conflicts, Persian and Greek conflicts. If you watch movie called 300, this 300 movie is the story of conflict between Persians and Greeks. Around 500s, in 500 BC, 400s, up to mid of 300 BC, this was very powerful empire, Achaemenid Empire. Now come to Indian subcontinent. They expanded into this part. They were influencing this area, while this is around for the first time in 516 BC itself. Darius, different people were there. They used to call themselves as great. The historians called them as great, like Cyrus the Great, like we are calling Ashoka the Great, Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, Xerxes the Great. Such kind of great monarchs who commanded large territories, historians called them with the name Cyrus the Great, Darius the Great, Xerxes the Great, different kings. Darius the Great, he was the one who reached northwestern part of India. Xerxes, he was the one who was shown in this movie. In 300 movie, Xerxes, he was the one who portrayed in 300 movie. He was the one when he was fighting with Greeks in the western part. Around 516 BC, here we are more concerned about this part. In this part now, Iranian influence, Indian influence. This is the mixing of cultures. Already Gandhara, Cambodia, such one of the 16 great Mahajanapadas were there. Cambodia, Gandhara. Now these areas were conquered by Achaemenid Empire. Now Greek script and Indian script combinedly, the influence now we are talking, it led to the emergence of Kharoshthi script. This is important for our history. Ashoka has issued inscriptions in Kharoshthi script as well. In India, it is Brahmi script. Here this is Aramaic script. This is Aramaic script. This is Brahmi script. Meeting ground is led to the creation of new script, that is Kharoshthi. In our history, Kharoshthi is important. Ashoka issued inscriptions along with Brahmi script. He issued Brahmi script also, issued in Kharoshthi script also. He issued inscriptions in Aramaic script also. After Achaemenid Empire, Greeks are also about to come to northwestern part of India. He issued in Greek script and Greek language as well. This is one important influence of Iranian invasions on Indian subcontinent. Second one, ideas, script also. One is script. Second one, traders. Now traders moved from Indian subcontinent to the Achaemenid Empire, and from there they went to Greek European lands as well. From India to Iran, Iran to Greek. For the first time, traders reached western part and Greeks came to know about India. Greeks started knowing about India. In their literature also, India was portrayed as one of the richest places on the earth. Herodotus, Around this time period, he portrayed India. Herodotus was called the father of India. Not father of India, father of history. Herodotus, the father of history, he portrayed India as the fabulous country with a lot of riches. His writings influenced Alexander. He wanted to reach India at one point of time in his lifetime. Alexander influenced so much about India's fabulous wealth through writings of Herodotus. He was called the father of history, Herodotus. How he came to know about India? Through Iranian contacts. Traders, ideas transferred from Indian subcontinent to Iran, from Iran to Greek regions. This is another influence of Iranian contacts. One more, in sculpture also, some of the Achaemenid influence was seen in Mauryan art as well. For example, bell-shaped capital in Ashokan pillars influenced from Achaemenid Empire. These are the various influences of Iran. Why I am taking these in detail means this is the area, if you understand this area very well. Now in our entire history, this process is a repeating process. Now Iranians came and Greeks came. Later Central Asia, some people from Central Asia come, once again mixing of cultures. Once again Turks will come, mixing of cultures. Arabs for some time came, mixing of cultures. This mixing of cultures, continuous interaction among the cultures was a continuous process in our entire Indian history. This is for the first time in our history we see all these intermixings. If we understand this aspect here and if we know this geography properly, the rest of the history is nothing but repetition of what is happening now. Iranian influence is done. Now when it comes to the Greeks, by the time period 300 BC or 320s BC, in India Nanda dynasty was there. I am erasing this. Nanda dynasty. Already by this time period, the power of Nandas reached so many areas. Here also I am erasing. Achaemenid Empire expanded into different parts. Now they had contacts with the Greek also. Now here a person called Alexander, he started expanding. Initially they unified their territories. And later expanded into his territories towards Achaemenid Empire. As we have seen, Herodotus, the father of history, with his writings influenced Alexander so much to reach India. At the same time, the Achaemenid Empire, Persians and Greeks, the legendary battles were continuously happening this round, and now Alexander wanted to defeat Persians and he wanted to completely annihilate the Achaemenid Empire. Finally he did it. Now Achaemenid Empire is completely annihilated. Alexander Empire reached from Europe to this area till northwestern part of India he reached. Alexander, he reached northwestern part of India. Here let us see some more details which are very essential. It will be helpful for future as well. Geography wise, these areas are hilly regions, Himalayas. There is a pass called Khyber Pass. Near present day Peshawar region, it is Khyber Pass. Through this Khyber Pass, Alexander entered Indian subcontinent. Here it is Kabul. First he conquered these areas, then he reached Kabul. From Kabul through Khyber Pass, this Khyber Pass we often hear in our history. Aryans also entered into Indian subcontinent through this Khyber Pass. Now Greeks also entered. Later we are going to see Shakas, Kushanas, different sections of people. Khyber Pass acted as a pass of mixing of cultures. Later in medieval time period, Turks also entered into this pass. Whoever is ruling in this part, they should have an eye on this. Khyber Pass is very strategic. Whoever controls strategically Khyber Pass, they can stop the invasions beyond Khyber Pass itself. If the security of Khyber Pass is weak, then invasions will take place in the Indian subcontinent. Whenever there was weak central administration, these parts were weak, these parts were not secured properly. Whenever there was strong power in India, they protected these northwestern parts very well. Whoever controls northwestern part of India, they can save the Indian subcontinent. Through this Khyber Pass, Alexander also came. Here two kingdoms were there. One is Ambi, another one Porus. Two kings were there when Alexander the Great he entered Indian subcontinent. He surrendered to Alexander, whereas he did not surrender. He gave stiff resistance to Alexander. He fought bravely, courageously. However, Porus was defeated in the hands of Alexander. After seeing his courageous nature, his kingdom was given back by Alexander. He wanted to enter. Now Alexander wanted to enter into Indian subcontinent. However, he could not enter here. One reason was the Nanda dynasty. Nanda dynasty was very powerful one. They were using elephants. These elephants provided very strong defense for Nanda dynasty. Alexander forces were wary about these elephants. Already by this time period, so many years passed, they were homesick. They were fearful of elephants. This area is very hot region. Climatically hot region. Now they were disease ridden, sick ridden. All these factors made the soldiers of Alexander to resist him not to proceed further. Alexander he had to bow to the pressure of soldiers. However, he stayed in the northwestern part for 19 months. Nearly 1.5 years, he tried to conquer small principalities, and finally all these came under Alexander Empire. Now our focus is what kind of impact it had on Indian history. I am erasing this. Now all these became part of Greek Empire. Now Nanda Empire. In this place, once again, mixing of cultures. Alexander he went back. He died at very young age. He could not consolidate or he could not rule the territory. Later, entire his kingdom was divided into 4 parts. One part, this part was under Seleucus Nicator. One of the generals of Alexander, Seleucus Nicator, this part came under Seleucus Nicator when Nanda dynasty was there. Later, Nandas were replaced by Chandragupta Maurya with help of Kautilya. Chandragupta Maurya's, the history of Chandragupta Maurya mentions Seleucus Nicator as well. Alexander, he went back, he died. Later, one of his generals occupied these areas and he ruled this one. The people who settled in this location are called Indo-Greeks. in mixing of cultures? Indo-Greeks. This is how we see for the first time Indo-Greeks in our history. So many times we see about Indo-Greeks. There were some kings, Indo-Greeks, like Menander. There is a text called Milinda Panho. It was the dialogue between Menander and Nagasena, a Buddhist monk. Menander asked so many questions about Buddhism. Nagasena answered his questions. All these question and answers were written in a book called Milinda Panho. This is very important for prelims. Milinda Panho. With respect to mains point of view, question may come like how Iranian and Greek invasions affected the Indian culture. This is mains question. When it comes to prelims, important kings and important cultural developments, important literature, important sculpture, architecture, these are the prelims point of view, important areas. One reason, Nanda dynasty. Now Indo-Greeks, new cultures, mixing of cultures, script like Greek script, Greek language. This one, due to continuous interactions, we came to know about geography as well. When Alexander roamed all these areas, geography was properly recorded. Because of these recordings, we come to know more about the geographic aspect about this particular location. And history as well, chronology as well. In our Indian literature, chronology is very difficult to determine. We do not know exactly what happened earlier and what happened later. It is very interesting to know that the name Ashoka, he issued so many inscriptions across the country. Still, through inscriptions, we could not identify the name of Ashoka till 1915. In our entire history, our historians did not see the way how Europeans have seen the history. Europeans have recorded the events in a chronological way, whereas in Indian literature, we do not find such kind of chronological order. With the help of Greek accounts, because of Alexander invasions, all these invasions were recorded in Greek literature. Greek literature mentioned about Chandragupta Maurya, Nanda dynasty. Because of these things, we are able to understand that yes, there was a kingdom called Nanda dynasty which is contemporary to Alexander. This helped Greek invasions of northwestern part of India created a scenario where our own history can be catalogued in a chronological way. That is another important history. Chronology wise, geography also we come to know about it. Another one, artisans, Greek artisans, Indian artisans, Greek technology, Indian technology intermixed, so exchange of ideas. Gradually, it led to the creation of Gandhara art. Indo-Greeks, Gandhara art, we are talking about Gandhara art. In post-Mauryan period, three types of arts emerged: Gandhara art, Madura art and Amaravati art. So one of these schools of art, that is Indo-Greek art, that is Gandhara art, result of Greek invasions of northwestern part of India. Politically also it had significance. Like we discussed, he was there in 19 months in this area. He occupied small territories and expanded his empire into all these areas. He unified these tribal areas. Because of this unity, for Chandragupta Maurya, it became very easy to conquer these areas. When Chandragupta Maurya emerged as the king of Pataliputra, he expanded into this area very easily. That is another major significant aspect about Greeks invasions and how the impact of Iranian invasions and Greek invasions felt on Indian history. So these are various developments. Later we will continue with Mauryan. Now we are reaching the Mauryan Empire. Before entering into the Mauryan Empire, in Mauryan Empire we will see Chandragupta Maurya, Bindusara and Ashoka. Ashoka has patronized arts. He issued a lot of inscriptions, pillar inscription, rock inscriptions, patronized Buddhism. Before entering into Mauryas, we will study in detail about Buddhism and Jainism. These two religions are going to lay foundation for future culture of Indian history. In this video, we focused on two important aspects. One is the age of Mahajanapadas. Later, we have seen Iranian and Greek invasions. In the age of Mahajanapada, there were 16 Mahajanapadas. These 16 Mahajanapadas, due to the influence of later Vedic period polity emerged into large kingdoms. They are 16 by 600 BC. One of the Mahajanapadas, Magadha, they expanded into different areas due to various reasons. One is geography, another one leadership, another one unorthodox ideas that prevailed in this region. Later, when Nanda dynasty was ruling Magadhan Empire, Greeks invaded. Before that, when Bimbisara was ruling, Iranians invaded northwestern part of India. Because of these invasions, Iranian influence emerged and also Greek influence emerged in the northwestern part of India. Because of this, different cultural traits emerged into the Indian subcontinent. So this is about age of Mahajanapadas and Iranian and Greek invasions. Next we will see about Buddhism, Jainism. Later we move to Mauryan Empire. Thank you.